Hey everybody, welcome to Pop Culture Philosophers. I'm Rockin Robbie Billups, and it's time for the weekly comic book review. That's right everybody, thanks for checking out the video. I am Rockin Robbie Billups. This is the weekly comic book review. It's the show where I read a lot of comic books and I'll let you know what I thought about them, and we always start with the pick of the week. And this week's pick of the week, Patra issue number 4 from Dark Horse Comics, written by James Robinson with artwork by Scott Kolins. Who's the rest of this team? How about lettering by Jim Campbell? Let's start off with this. How about some of the most amazing artwork I've ever seen from artist Scott Kolins? The work is absolutely splendid. Like the line work, the detail, the hatching, the old school kind of approach to it, as well as the composition and the flow of the story, the sequential storytelling. Scott Kolins has been doing this for a while, and usually after somebody's been in this industry for like decades, it doesn't usually get better. Here, in the case of Scott Kolins, it does. Also, issue 4 of Patra is the final issue for now. It's the end of the first arc, and this has been a really cool story. The basic premise is this. It's about a young woman who, along with her family, was murdered by a serial killer. So now she's like a ghost on a path of vengeance, of rectifying this horrible wrong that has been done, right? But in this issue, and even though, like, at the end of issue 3, I was like, how are we wrapping this all up in one issue? Well, it does all get supremely wrapped up in one issue, but also set up for what's to come, right? So all of the threads, everything that's been set up has been knocked down here in issue number 4, and in a very satisfying, conclusionatory type of way. Conclusionatory? I don't even know if that's a word, but I'm not the writer. James Robinson is. This dude's been doing it for a while. His Starman work in the 90s, the Golden Age, those are some of the best comics of the 90s that are out there. He has not missed a step. This story is so cool. The character focus is amazing. And what really happens here, they tie everything up in a nice, tidy little bow that they need to at the end of this first arc, but they really deepen the story, they deepen the character's journey, and they really pull some twists and turns that have us as the audience go, holy freaking cow. Not only was this a great conclusion to Patra Volume 1, it was a great setup for Volume number 2. This one, above all else that came out this week, really impressed me. I loved it artistically, writing-wise, structurally, and narratively. Everything about this book works. And the reason why I picked it is because this is how you do a conclusionatory chapter. Quote me on that. How about that? All right, let's jump over to DC. We get Absolute Superman issue number 2. Absolute Superman number 1, I thought was the weakest of the 3 Absolute books so far. I thought it's been, like, to me, it's Wonder Woman, Batman, Superman. But I had the opportunity to read Absolute Superman multiple times before I did my review, and the day I did my review, I actually liked it a little bit better. I've only read Absolute Superman number 2 one time, and I like it. I do like it. I think Jason Aaron is crafting a different enough approach to Superman, but familiar enough at the same time to really kind of fit into that Absolute kind of journey, right? We were just talking about this on the Best Comics of the Month stream. If you've never checked out that show, you really should. If you like this show, you'll love that show. At the end of every month, me and a panel of comic book YouTubers get together to talk about our favorite comics of the month. And all of us thought that Absolute Superman was like the weakest of the 3. And not saying that this is a bad book. It's not. It's decent. And in fact, Rafael Sandoval on the artwork is amazing. The artwork in issue number 2 is splendid. It's got a great sense of momentum and energy and a dynamic quality to it that really makes it separate itself from a lot of the other mainstream superhero comics out there. And there's some ideas that are being played around with here, where what I love about the Absolute books is that they're familiar, yet different enough, right? And that's what's really being developed here in the pages of issue number 2 of Absolute Superman. We're starting to widen the gap between the typical origin of Superman and how he leaves Krypton into Absolute, right? It's really interesting, some really cool stuff. The dynamic between Lois and Clark, or my bad, I guess he's not Clark in this universe, but the difference between in the relationship and the dynamic between Lois, who is a government agent here who is learning that she enjoys writing, but she's sent out there as a military agent to come up against this new Superman figure, and it's working for me. I'm liking it. I'm liking the changes. I'm liking the things that they don't change. Overall, though, it doesn't quite fully resonate with me, but I think it has potential to really develop into something special. It's okay? It's more than it's pretty damn good. They introduce some elements with the suit and the cape in particular here that makes me think Spawn 97 movie. It really does. Aside from that, though, the book was pretty solid. It was all right. We also got a noir edition of Absolute Superman issue number 1. All of that beautiful artwork in black and white. So if you really like seeing the line work, if you like seeing what the artwork looks like without the color, and I was always taught this by people that were teaching me comic book art and the history of comics. They were saying it has to look great in black and white first. Do not depend on color to make your artwork dynamic. And you kind of get that to a point here. So it's always cool to see that stuff. All right, now we got Two-Face issue number 1. Why are we doing a Two-Face book? Why? I don't know. Like, here's the thing. Like, I talk about this all the time. Villains are dope. And villains that are gnarly and crazy and cool in comics are even more dope, right? But when you try to get us on the side of a villain, and there's no way that you do an entire series or a mini-series devoted to a villain without wanting us to feel some kind of a connection to that villain, right? It's been done at DC. We'll be talking about Poison Ivy, for instance. But with Two-Face number 1, like, I don't know why this book exists. It's written by Christian Ward. Christian Ward did a really great job utilizing Two-Face in Batman the Madness, which was a DC Black Label book from, earlier this year or later last year? But Christian Ward is not doing the art, and the art is fine here. The art's pretty freaking solid. The artist is Fabio Veras with Ivan Placencia on the coloring. The coloring is amazing. Let's just highlight this. The coloring in DC books has gotten so much better than all the other mainstream comic publishers out there. The coloring is great. The graphic sense of design is cool. The premise of the story is a little I don't know, it didn't really grab me. It felt a little bit lame. I don't know what it was, man. There was something about this book that really just threw me off, and other elements of it that really worked for me. So Two-Face, Harvey Dent, is acting still as a lawyer, but on the criminal side of things. It's okay. It's all right. It's decent. It has some cool revelations towards the end that makes me really excited to see how this story, this idea by Christian Ward is going to develop. The art was solid, but overall, it was just kind of okay. Then we got Batgirl issue number 2. I was incredibly impressed with Batgirl issue number 1. First of all, I'm a huge Cassandra Cain fan, right? I've been reading Batman comics since right before Nightfall, right? I've been reading them almost pretty much consecutively ever since then, right? And out of all the new characters that have been introduced in my lifetime, Cassandra Cain is one that really sticks with me. When I was reading No Man's Land, and by the way, No Man's Land was like my senior year of high school, showing my age there, but just also trying to elaborate and illustrate how much this character means to me. And I've seen this character in DC history over the last 10 to 15-ish years really go through a lot of whack shit. You know what I'm saying? Just a lot of whack interpretations and a lot of stupid books and things that worked and things that didn't. Here, I feel like we're finally getting on the same page, at least with my expectations. The writing, the art here, it's Tate Bromball. The art is super cool. Batgirl and her mother, Lady Shiva. A lot of people are after Lady Shiva, and Batgirl has to help her out. I like the conflict there. I like how this story is developing, and I really like how DC has made an effort, and I think this effort was led on by James Tynion with his work on Detective Comics in the Rebirth era, like in 2016, which feels like yesterday, but oh so long ago at the same time. But I really appreciate this take on Cassandra, and I really like this characterization. I really like diving back into where she started, where she's from, and building up from there. So I really like this book. I thought it was a good issue number 2. Not as good as issue number 1, but still pretty good. Then we got JSA issue number 2. JSA is written by Jeff Lemire now, right? That should be a no freaking brainer. That should be one of the best comics that DC has. And it's okay. It's all right. Like the first issue, I felt like we missed something. In issue number 2, that sense of missing something is gone. And I think it's a fine issue. I actually think issue 2 is better than issue number 1, but it's not everything that I know Jeff Lemire is capable of delivering. And I've seen this before. I've seen Jeff Lemire do mainstream work on a team book like Extraordinary X-Men with Humberto Ramos, right? And I just wasn't vibing with it, right? I'm not quite vibing with this run on JSA. Feels a bit too chaotic, a bit disconnected, and the art, I don't like to talk shit about anybody's art, because if you're drawing a comic, you're better than me. But the art's not doing it for me in this book. It's okay, and I expect more out of this book because it's Jeff Lemire, and it's not quite working for me. Then we got Batman issue 155. This is the end of Chip Zdarsky's run on Batman, right? We got Jim Lee, Jeff Loeb. They're coming back to do a 6-part Hush Part 2 story starting in March or whatever. So we only got like a few more issues of Chip Zdarsky's run. Chip's run has been inconsistent. It's had bits that were great, really anchored by great artwork by Jorge Jimenez, and then it had moments that weren't so great, mostly anchored by the non-existence of Jorge Jimenez artwork. Here we got the art by Jorge Fornes, and the art is great. Jorge Fornes is a great artist. He's got this great noirish style. He really does talking heads very well. He's got a great sense of composition. The coloring is amazing in this book. Is that Tomo Mori? Yes, it is. It's really cool. Chip is inconsistent. So like 2 issues ago, I really liked it. Last issue, I didn't. This one, I like it again, right? We're diving into a little bit of an explanation of what Gordon's been up to romantically lately, and it's kind of tied into the overall narrative. And even though I think the overall narrative of Chip Zdarsky's Batman's kind of just not really for me and not really quite working, I do like this exploration on Gordon at this point in his age and what he's doing in his current developing romantic relationship. I like that. It's all right. The art's solid. So once again, Chip's Batman goes good, bad, good, okay, bad, good, bad, what, okay, what. It's just so inconsistent. It's not just like, not consistent like Poison Ivy. Poison Ivy number 28, yet another great issue. I know I've said this before, I'm going to say this again. When this book first started, I was like, man, it's really rough to try to tread that line with a villain who you want the audience to understand and get on the side of, but also at the same time maintaining the villainous roots of the character. Feels like they were treading a line. Is Pamela, Poison Ivy, is she an eco-terrorist? Is she a super heinous, villainous, bad person? Or is she a misunderstood anti-hero? Is she a hero? Is she... What's going on there? But this balance that's being played, not just with the character of Pamela, but these other characters. Killer Croc. Some of the work done by Killer Croc and Janet in this book, they excel what's being done with Pamela. Really interesting, cool stuff. But I'll tell you what. I love the art. I love the story. I think it's strengthening. I think it's getting better. They're really holding on to the big reveal of who the ultimate villain is in this new arc, and it's so obvious. It's so obvious. That's one element that's taking the audience for granted, I believe. However, if they do a reveal and I'm not right, then all of that is irrelevant. But Poison Ivy's been great, super consistent, 28 issues of a Poison Ivy book, and it's going to continue. Action Comics is here with issue 1078. The book's been weekly. Does it need to be? Who cares? I'm not going to comment on that. All I'm going to comment on is the actual quality and consistency of this book. Mark Waid and his artists, because he's worked with a plethora of artists on this run, because it's a weekly comic, it's been going 10 chapters, 10 weeks, or 9 weeks. 9 weeks straight with this Phantom story, and the Phantom story has been interesting. Something's up with the Phantom Zone. There's a new player in town there. Superman's trying to battle it. Mon-El is different than we remember. I like all of that stuff, but now the story has really escalated into a point where the scale and the epic scenario really feels epic and super scope, right? I love this book. I think it's good. I have heard that sometime in the beginning of next year it's going back to a monthly or a bi-weekly book. I think that will be better for it, but to be honest with you, this has been a dope run, and this is chapter 9, and if this book was monthly, over 9 months, I would say it's time to wrap the story up. So, I mean, call me a hypocrite. I hate that Action Comics is weekly, but I love that this story is. There you go. Then we got DC Horror Presents issue number 2. This is a DC horror anthology. I thought the first issue was okay. I thought the second issue was just okay. The first story in here by Latoya Morgan and Tom Derenick is alright. It's okay. It's got some cool gnarly bits. It's definitely not a book for kids. There's like a... I don't know. There's another story in here that... I'm finding it hard to remember these stories, and I just read it this afternoon, so... It's alright. It's okay. Horror anthologies, whether they're related to Halloween or related to Christmas, I appreciate them, but they're hard to really keep our attention in this world where there's so many new comics every single week on the shelf. You gotta stand out, and you stand out with talent, and I'm not saying this book is filled with no talent, I'm just saying it's not really standing out. So it's alright. Then we got Batman Santa Claus Silent Night Returns, issue number 2. Another super solid issue. We got Jeff Parker doing a great job of having... So the first volume of this, which came out last year, right? Batman, Santa Claus, Silent Night. It's a team up between Batman, the Bat Family, and some of the Justice League with Santa Claus against the Krampus. It was a really fun holiday-centric story. We're continuing that vibe and that flavor here in Silent Night Returns. But the difference is the Justice League have been immediately overwhelmed. And now it's up to Santa Claus to save the day, and he's teaming up with Damian. There's some new interesting concepts being placed in the book. The art's not as good as the first one, but the story is still pretty freaking solid, and I like it. If you're just looking for a good, fun, dumb, in-continuity team-up between the DC Universe and the real Santa Claus, look no further. It's right there. Let's jump over to Marvel. We got All-New Venom, issue number 1. All right. I'm a huge Venom head. I love the character of Venom. I love Eddie Brock. I was not digging on what Al Ewing was doing in the pages of Venom, and I dropped out. I tried to come back during certain events, including this latest Venom War, and I just could not stick with it. I'm sorry, y'all. Venom War is over now, and the Venom symbiote has moved on to a new host. The host is not Eddie Brock. The host is not Dylan Brock. The host is not Peter Parker, but it's somebody. And they're holding on to that mystery. And they're revealing the mystery. I'm trying to find a good page here. They're building into this mystery in an okay way. So it sets up, it's the trial of Madame Mask. It's picking up post Spider-Man gang war. Not the original gang war in the 80s, but the more current one. Madame Mask's trial. Luke Cage is there. Rick Jones is there. Robbie Robertson is there. Everybody disappears when the new Venom shows up to wreck some shit. And it's the whole premise of this book is, who is the new Venom? Is it Rick Jones? Is it Robbie Robertson? Is it Madame Mask? Is it Luke Cage? That kind of shit bores me. It really does. Like, the premise of this book is who is the new Venom, and that's fine. And it will honestly keep me engaged in this book just long enough to find out the reveal of that mystery. But will it keep me sunk into this book going forward? That's something that I want to talk about real quick. This whole idea, this whole trope, right? This motif of being like, oh, there's a new version of this character. Who could it be? They did that with Moon Knight recently, right? And I love the Jed MacKay Moon Knight run, but I think that was like the weakest part of the Moon Knight run. And I'm not saying that I'm a huge fan of Al Ewing. I don't think Al Ewing's a huge fan of me. And I'm not necessarily always resonating with his work. And I appreciate what he's trying to do. He's trying to do some really interesting, deep, conceptually type shit with Venom. But it's Venom. I just want to... I don't know. I don't want to be super basic, but I just kind of want Venom to be like an anti-hero who eats brains occasionally. I don't know. I want it to be Eddie. Eddie's apparently going to be Carnage now. I don't care. If you've been loving Venom, check it out. It's cool. My problem is this. The whole point of this book is the mystery of who the new All-New Venom is. Nothing else about it was appealing to me. I think it's Luke Cage. We'll see. If it's Rick Jones, I'm done. I'm so done. All right, then we got the Ultimates here with issue number 7, another fantastic issue from Dennis Camp, and I believe it's Juan Frigeri. Let me find the title page. Where is the title page? Is it at the end? I think it's Juan Frigeri. I really like this book. I think it's super solid, and yeah, it is Juan Frigeri, and it was at the end. I like this book a lot. We have built up this new team of Ultimates in this new post-Maker Ultimate universe, and it's working for me. And in the last issue, we had like a big freaking deal moment for the Ultimates. And this has been not just about dealing with the ramifications. Any other creative team would have the whole issue of people being super sad over what happened in the last issue and not so much onus on pushing the book forward like it has been pushed forward. Every character gets a chance to spotlight themselves here, and they are totally giving enough onus and enough weight and gravity to what is actually going on in the story narratively. Really cool stuff. It can be easy sometimes trying to take some wild concepts, pulling them and pushing them into a Marvel book, but Dennis Camp and company, they're doing a great job, and Ultimates continues to be amazing. X-Men number 8. What? Robbie, I thought you hated the X-Men. I thought you stopped reading X-Men proper after issue number 3. I did. I have since been... I got caught up. I just had a bug up my ass one day, and I was like, you know what? I want to catch up on Jed MacKay's X-Men. I like Jed MacKay. Did I drop out too soon? I reread 1 through 7 and enjoyed it enough. Now we're here with part 8 because this is the first part of a 4-part crossover with Uncanny X-Men. And I've been enjoying Gail Simone and David Marquez over at Uncanny X-Men. Here, though, X-Men number 8, and it's all right. It's decent. The story's fine. The way that they set up this crossover, the way it ties into Uncanny X-Men, the way it relates to the Beast. And one of my favorite elements of this whole thing, which I wasn't fully aware of, really, until I did my reread, was that Beast got so evil and shit-faced dark at the end of the Krakoan era that I guess he died, and they resurrected him with, like they rebooted him to the last save moment, which was apparently before he ever met Jubilee, right? So that's interesting. Ryan Stegman on the artwork. He's got a bunch of inkers. So J.P. Meyer, Liv Say, and Ryan Stegman himself. The inking gives an inconsistent quality to the artwork. Like the line work itself could be fine, but there is an inconsistency in that inking that just kind of makes it just not super vibe with me, and I wanted to love this book. I thought it was all right. So there you go. All right, then we got Wolverine number 4. I loved issue number 1 of Saladin Ahmed's Wolverine. I thought issue number 2 was all right. Issue number 3, I was like, you're really losing momentum right here, and you really need to pull it together fast. Issue number 4, I'm thinking, you have lost momentum in this book. You got a few ideas that are really working and there, but the art, the narrative, the flow of it, the pacing of it, it's just not quite there for me. It's okay. The basic premise in this new Wolverine book is that there is some unknown factor out there that's upgrading adamantium-infused villains of Wolverines. Cyber, Lady Deathstrike, Constrictor, maybe Wolverine himself is next. I don't know. I just don't know if I will know, because I like the book enough, I guess, but it is quickly losing its steam. Issue number 1 was great. Issue number 2, not so much. Issue 3, a little weak. Issue number 4, it's kind of whack. Wasn't quite working for me. Let's jump over to Image, though. And from Image Comics, we have Dread the Halls, issue number 1, a one-shot Christmas horror anthology from Chris Ryhall and Jordan Hart, with artwork from Lee Ferguson, Jimmy Kakaj, Walter Pax, and Fabio Veras. It's alright. It's got some decent bits. It's got some not-so-decent bits. It seems like more of the Jordan Hart bits are pretty good. My favorite story was this first one with Fabio Veras on the artwork, and I think we saw Fabio Veras on Two-Face, right? Tonight. This one's really cool, about some creepy Christmas carolers. That was cool. I liked that story. I liked the art there. The second story is about like an evil version of Santa Claus that these kids try to trap with some kind of fishing lure or something. That was a little dumb, right? Then there's Walter Pax's art on this one with Jordan Hart on the writing. Was really good. I really liked the art. The story was decent enough too. And then the final story was quick and kind of just didn't really super work for me, but I did like the art and the coloring, so it's alright, it's okay. If it's a small week for you and you're super into Christmas horror and anthology comics, maybe check it out. But Dread the Halls, it was just alright. Then we got Juvenile, issue number 1. This is written and illustrated by Jesus Orellana. It's okay. The artwork is really cool. I like the art. It has this like Maria Lovett kind of quality to it. So I do like the art, but the story just didn't quite vibe with me. The concept is decent enough. It's about a world in which a disease develops that starts affecting the adolescent. So young kids get infected with this disease. They get put into these hospitals. So like high school sucks. Adolescence sucks. Imagine if you got a disease like everybody else and you're like sequestered to like a prison hospital type thing. It's got an interesting concept. The conceit is there. The execution, a little bit lacking. Like artistically, it's fine. Nothing super dynamic about it. Nothing that really stands out. It's decent. It gets the job done. But the story is just kind of below par. It's all right. It feels disconnected, slightly clunky. Doesn't really work for me. Did not impress me. Did not stand out. I may not come back for another issue. Then we got the Top Cow Holiday Special. This one's all right. Mark Silvestri, Jim Valentino, Marguerite Bennett. There's a Witchblade story, an Aphrodite 9 story, and a Darkness story. They're all right. They're okay. If you're a huge Top Cow fan and you love holiday anthologies and comics, this book's for you. Otherwise, I kind of think it's skippable, and I hate to say that about anything that Mark Silvestri is a part of. All right, then we got Gunslinger Spawn here with issue number 38. I've said this before, I'll say it again. Ever since the aftermath of Spawn 350, where the dead zones have been locked yet again, and all of the hell spawns have their powers taken away from them, and Gunslinger Spawn since then has been kind of dipping in quality. It's been strengthening a little bit in the last couple issues. Monolith, after Gunslinger's powerless. He gets arrested by the police. We get more tie-ins to his past, how that relates to his present day scenario, and it's starting to intrigue me a little bit more. Then we have Monolith show up to break Javi out of prison, and then very quickly we take that element and then just kind of twist this story back around. And I know that there's some big things happening in the Spawn 360. Spawn 360 is not out yet, but the ramifications of Spawn 360 happen at the end here in Gunslinger, and it's a great moment, and it's really cool, and I think it's going to get this book back on track, but I do think the timing's a little bit off. I think since Brett Booth has left this book, it's lost a little bit of its luster, if that makes sense. So Gunslinger Spawn, still $2.99, still a cardstock cover, but is it worth it? I don't know. Not so much anymore, but we'll see what happens. Then we got Scorched, issue number 36. Ever since post-Spawn 350 and John Layman coming on as the writer of this book, I think it's elevated itself. Sean Lewis did a great job of kicking this book off for a while. I think then Todd came in and did some stuff. Now it's back to John Layman, or it's on John Layman now. I really like this story. I like this vibe. I like the art. I like the story. I like how it's digging. I'm digging it. I like how I'm digging it, I guess is what I'm supposed to say. Scorched has been all right. $2.99, cardstock cover. Marvel, where are you at? DC, where you at? Todd can do it. Y'all get what I'm saying, right? I know that's become a bit, but like honestly, in the comments right now, I need you to recognize or tell me what you think about this whole bit. Because like Todd McFarlane can do cardstock covers $2.99. Why not Marvel? DC I think is fine, but Marvel could really step it up. Then we got Christmas 365 issue number 1 from Dark Horse Comics, written by Mikey Way and from My Chemical Romance. Then we got Jonathan Rivera, Piotr Kowalski. Kowalski is just one of the most prolific artists in comics right now. This dude is so consistent at what he does. And I mentioned on the monthly stream that Hayden Sherman was like so prolific. And Hayden is. And their work is always shifting and changing. Kowalski's work stays the same. It stays exactly what you love about Kowalski's work. Great hatching, great detail, great line work, and it's all here. This is an interesting enough story. It was decent. Out of all of the Christmas-themed stories this week, this was the one that appealed to me the most. It's about this dude who has a family, feels like he's been fucking up this whole time, doesn't really feel like he's dealing with the aftermath of the death of his father. He's got a wife, he's got kids, but he feels like he's not quite delivering enough. And so the way he feels that he's going to deliver enough now is to celebrate Christmas 365 days of the year. He decides that Christmas is now going to be year-round. And everything I told you is basically what this first issue is, but it kind of intrigues me to see how it's going to develop and what happens going further. Then we got the Oddly Pedestrian Life of Christopher Chaos, issue number 14. Yo, we just had an issue of Christopher Chaos last week. Now we got another one. That's interesting. Maybe a little bit too much too fast for the moment to last time. A little bit 311 for your ass. Anyway, Christopher Chaos issue number 14 was okay. We got this revelation recently about the Monster Underground, the city of underground monsters with this like artificial sun. They developed that out a little bit, but this feels so disconnected from the rest of the book, and it's a different artist. Naomi Frank. The art's fine. The story is fine. I like the character, but it doesn't feel super connected. It feels like, oh, we made this revelation. Let's elaborate on that a little bit, but at the same time do something completely irrelevant to the rest of the book. Man, that smells good. Doesn't get the smell of the week, but it might get the spread of the week. Look at that. I mean, Christopher Chaos is still good, and I think this issue would hit better if I didn't just have to read this last week. But I still like Christopher Chaos. Then we got Archaic issue number 1 from Ahoy Comics, and I can already sniff it. That is the smell of the week. That smells like comics, Christmas, warmth, and sugar. That's what it smells like. And the book itself is okay. It's about this woman down on her luck. Her husband is left, can't find him. She's got kids. She's struggling. She's a single mom. There are elements of this story that are really disconnected and clunky, that don't really quite work, kind of jarring. But the basic premise is this single mom, newly single mom, with 3 kids, no money, no food, all of a sudden finds out that she's the heir to some kind of fortune or something. She goes to find out what this is. It comes out to be more than she thought or bargained for. Have we seen plenty of comics like that over the last just 6 months with this exact same premise? Yes. Yes, we have. So what it lacks in originality, though, it makes up for with smell. So there you go. Smell of the week goes to Archaic issue number 1. Then we got The Exorcism at 1600 pin from IDW. This is, and by the way, real quick, Dynamite, Boom, other companies, Mad Cave, they got books out this week too. Dynamite is still fucking everything up. They're not shipping them out on time. Not Dynamite, Diamond. Diamond is still fucking everything up. They're not shipping them out on time. I don't have those books. I just don't have them. I'm not going to cover them until I have them in my hand. So we'll talk about those next week. So Thundercats Apex number 1, Chitara issue number 6. That's out. I'm sure they're cool. New Powerpuff Girls Winter Showdown Snowdown Special. That's cool. There's some Boom books. There's some Mad Cave books. I think Dick Tracy's supposed to be out this week. Good luck finding it at your shop, because Diamond sucks. All right, that being said, IDW doesn't suck so much right now. They, they haven't changed over their new logo to every book now, which is really weird, but it's been a long time since The Exorcism of 1600 Pen, issue number 1. That's the biggest problem for me with issue number 2, is I feel a little bit disconnected from the story, right? I feel like the schedule wasn't quite there. It's an exorcism or a demonic possession in the White House. There's a new president. She's dealing with the burden and the stress of being a new president, and somebody in her family gets demonically possessed. Issue number 2, it's a little bit wordy, it's a little verbose, and it doesn't quite get enough push forward to really move that momentum. Issue number 1 was great. I was really intrigued with these characters and the story. Issue number 2 holds it all back too long so that when it's really ready to let go, the issue is over. And in this market, in this economy, I don't know if I can give you 3 issues, Exorcism. You better come back and slay it. Then we got EC Comics from Oni Press, Cruel Universe, issue number 4, 5, issue number 5. I quit reading these EC books because I just was not digging them. I have not read this one, so I don't know what the inside of this book is or how good it is. But what I do know is this. Greg Smallwood gets the cover of the week right there. Look at the color. Look at the reference. Look at the combination of color, reference, skill, composition. That's the cover of the week. And that's everything. So that's what I read. That's what I thought. That's what I was digging. Let's recap. Cruel Universe number 5 gets the cover of the week. Exorcism at 1600 Pen is interesting, but it's losing some of its momentum. Archaic gets the smell of the week, but it's way too familiar of a story that we've seen very recently from multiple sources. Christopher Chaos, issue number 14. It was good. It was good. It was good. It could be better. Christmas 365. Kowalski's artwork was amazing. I really was intrigued by that story. Scorched, number 36. Really liking Scorched in the post-Spawn 350 universe. Gunslinger was the weakest Spawn book out of the post-350 Spawn books. But honestly, it's starting to pull itself together again. Pretty solid. Top Cow Holiday Special. If you're the biggest Top Cow fan out there, pick it up. Otherwise, ignore it. Juvenile. Great concept. Didn't really execute it very well. Dread the Halls, holiday horror anthology. Some of it works, most of it, like half of it works, half of it doesn't. Wolverine keeps getting weaker and weaker issue to issue. X-Men, some really inconsistent inking on Ryan Stegman's artwork, but still pretty decent. It's okay. Ultimates, though, rocked out. Dennis Camp and company have been doing a fantastic job there. All-New Venom. The whole premise is, who is the new Venom? That's really all this book has going for it. It's Luke Cage. It's Luke Cage. Which, that's interesting enough, but we'll see. We'll see. I'm not saying, they didn't tell us it was Luke Cage, okay? I think it's Luke Cage. Who do you think it is? Let me know in the comments. Batman Santa Claus Silent Night Returns. Just good, big, dumb, gigantic, moronic holiday splendor. DC Horror Presents issue number 2. Weaker than the first, so it didn't really appeal to me. Action Comics. I don't care if it's weekly. This is a really damn good Superman comic, and you should be reading it. Poison Ivy continues to be one of the most consistent villain extrapolations. That's the wrong word. It's a really great book. Poison Ivy's good. Batman, inconsistent. Up and down all the time. This happens to be an up issue. JSA by Jeff Lemire is not as good as I thought JSA by Jeff Lemire would be. Really disappointing. Batgirl, I love the respect that they're putting on the character and the history of Cassandra Cain, so there you go. Two-Face, why does this book exist? It shouldn't. It's got elements that work. The art in particular, the coloring in particular, but overall, it's just kind of okay. And I think it's going to be a forgettable book. We'll see what happens. All right, Absolute Superman's got a noir edition of issue number 1. It's also got issue number 2 out. Not bad, not great, but kind of all right, pretty decent. And then we got Patra, issue number 4. The end of the first arc of Patra and the setup for the second. Really great work from James Robinson. Some of the best work I've ever seen from Scott Collins. Let me find you a really good page. How about that one? Great coloring, great sense of action, great line work, great hatching. Really good stuff. So that's what I read. That's what I thought. That's what I was digging. What are you reading? What are you thinking? What are you digging? Thank you so much for checking out the video. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe, and join us over at patreon.com/PCP if you want to help support this channel. I've been Rockin Robbie Billups. Thanks for rocking with us. Station. Keep on reading. Pop, pop. Deck the halls with boughs of holly. Fa la 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 la. 'Tis the season to be boom!